This is a story of Pownal's early days and about one dramatic moment in our history. On that day, the people of Pownal had to make a difficult decision whether to fight the King of England. What led up to this? The original people in Pownal were, of course, the Mohican and Mohawk Native Americans. They passed through here using footpaths along the Hoosick River and bigger streams. Hundreds of their pots, stone tools, and other artifacts have been uncovered in Pownal. These original Americans, however, were forced to leave their homeland. The first people of European heritage settled along the river in Pownal as early as 1724. Many of these early settlers were of Dutch descent. They were really brave. Most people were too afraid to settle here. It was called the wilderness by other American colonists. Part of the danger was violence for the French and Indian War. British and French soldiers, each with different Indian tribes on their sides, fought for control of the area. Did you know Pownal has a road named Indian Massacre Road? It was likely named because back in 1755, Indians attacked the nearby Brimmer farm, killing one member of the family and carrying off two more to Canada. When the French forces lost this war in 1760, that made the area suddenly more safe for outsiders. Pownal was officially chartered January 8, 1760. Like other nearby chartered towns, Pownal was shaped like a square. Soon, a stream of people from the south came on horseback and by foot to live in this new town or to make money from land sales. Many of these settlers were religious rebels. For instance, Elder Benjamin Gardner, Pownal's first minister, thought only adults should be baptized. He reportedly had a log meeting house on Mount Anthony's Road. Who knows, he may have baptized his congregation at the nearby Tubbs. The first official church and meeting house in Pownal also was New Light Baptist. The white church on Center Street today was built on top of that meeting house. The descendants of some of those first settler families still live in Pownal. For instance, several historians believe George Gardner was the first true settler in Pownal, traveling with his wife Alice and 11 children for 14 days over rough roads from Rhode Island to build a house at the foot of Carpenter Hill. Today, the Gardner family is an integral part of Pownal. Michael Gardner is the chair of the Select Board. While safer after the French and Indian War, Pownal still was a hard place to live. To farm, you had to cut down trees and pull up stumps and rocks to plant crops or raise livestock. You can still see the rock walls those early settlers made. A Pownal farm family in the mid-1700s struggled with terrible diseases, a short growing season, cold winters and homemade houses, alcoholism, and other threats. Then, these settlers were told to leave. Authorities in Albany wanted to evict them, or to pay twice for their land. That's because the settlers had bought grants, pieces of land in Pownal, from New Hampshire Governor Benning Wentworth. The trouble was, the New York governor had claimed this area first. Things got ugly. Some of the new Pownal settlers forced the Dutchmen off their lands. Authorities in Albany also got aggressive. In turn, the new settlers formed a militia, or citizens' army, calling themselves the Green Mountain Boys. They attacked and beat surveyors working for New York, burned Yorker farms, and intimidated justices of the peace, judges, and sheriffs. Meanwhile, tensions were rising between American colonists and the British who ruled us. The British forced colonists to buy English goods and taxed them on the merchandise. These and other British actions caused outbreaks of violence, like the Boston Massacre. British soldiers shot into a crowd, killing 3 Americans. Then, in the spring of 1775, on the Commons in Concord, Massachusetts, local militiamen and British soldiers opened fire on each other. 7 colonists were dead and 73 British. History remembers the famous skirmish as the shots heard around the world. The American Revolution had started. Many of the Green Mountain Boys decided they had a new enemy, England. After Lexington and Concord, the Green Mountain Boys were asked to help the revolution. Could they capture Fort Ticonderoga? The British fort was between Lake George and Lake Champlain. It held lots of cannons that could be used to protect Boston from British attack. Best of all, spies suggested the fort might be lightly guarded. The leader of the Green Mountain Boys was a Bennington settler named Ethan Allen. He started to round up the boys. Historians estimate there were 25 Green Mountain Boys living among the 350 settlers in Pownal. Allen's favorite cousin, Remember Baker, was an early Pownal settler who helped form the boys. By 1775, their Pownal leader was Eli Noble. Noble had fought in the French and Indian War. We don't know exactly how Pownal Green Mountain Boys and other townspeople decided if they should get involved in the Ticonderoga expedition. Some may have gathered to debate. We know of several possible gathering spots. One was Charles Wright's Tavern, possibly the present-day Moore Wright House on Main Street in Pownal Village. There also was a log meeting house near Mount Anthony Road, according to tradition. It's possible the settlers met in Pownal Center right where we are today. The 1760 charter established this as a public place. As early as 1773, townspeople were planning their main meeting house on what is now Center Street. The Baptist log meeting house was finally finished in 1789. Or the settlers simply may have been too nervous to meet publicly at all. Some Pownal settlers were Tories, sympathetic to England. Wherever they met, this was a huge decision. Before this, the Green Mountain Boys intimidated poor Yorker farmers. Now they were being asked to attack a British fort, to revolt openly against England, the world's largest empire, David and Goliath. And if the colonies lost the war, soldiers and their families surely would be punished. 19-year-old Josiah Dunning played an important role. He helped organize a Pownal company for the Ticonderoga campaign. Like Dunning, those first Pownal volunteers were young men. The company elected Samuel Wright, 31 years old, captain, William Wheeler, age unknown, possibly then living in Williamstown, as lieutenant, and Daniel Welsh, 29 years old, possibly of Stamford, as ensign. Dunning went on to become a captain in the Revolutionary War Army and fight in many battles. As an old man, he recounted those battles when he applied for a government pension for his wife. He told us in that pension application how Pownal men organized, elected officers, and marched north ahead of other Green Mountain Boys from the area. The testimony from other pension applications supports this account. Like most Green Mountain Boys, Dunning was a subsistence farmer. Early May was an important time for these families. It was nearly planting time, so we can imagine it was not an easy decision for the boys to leave their families and fight. Families sacrificed as well as volunteer soldiers. Samuel Wright left his wife Sari and 5 children at home when he marched off to Ticonderoga. Another Pownal volunteer, Jonathan Page, about 23 years old, left 3 young children and a pregnant wife when he went off to Ticonderoga. Patience Page testified years later in a pension application that her husband was absent from home during wheat harvest in August of 1775. He continued to be away most of the war. Jonathan died in 1798 after the war. Patience's pension request was denied. For years, only 2 Pownal men were given credit for being part of the Fort Ticonderoga campaign. We now know from the research of Dr. Donald Smith that possibly 7 or more participated. Most of the Pownal recruits likely marched north to Lake Champlain earlier than other troops in order to find ferry boats. Only 2 were listed on official rolls. All the 7 were young men. There were 2 pairs of brothers. On May 3, 1775, a group of men from Connecticut and Massachusetts rode through Pownal on their way to join the Green Mountain Boys in the fight. They stopped at Simmons Tavern in Williamstown the night before, which today is River Bend Farm. On about May 7th, Benedict Arnold passed through Pownal to join the expedition. He slept the night before at Smedley's Tavern in Williamstown, now a restored private home on Route 2. Historian Joseph Parks believes 2 main roads existed at this time between Williamstown and Bennington. The High Road, what we call today Old Military Road and South Stream Road, and the Low Road, what is now part of Route 7 and Man Hill Road. Ironically, these historic Pownal roads today are minor roads or just tracks through the fields and woods. We don't know which road the Patriots took. As it turns out, Fort Ticonderoga was easy to capture. On May 10, 1775, a first wave of 83 Green Mountain Boys surprised the lone British sentry. Eventually, 400 Patriots arrived. Pownal's own Josiah Dunning witnessed a famous argument at the fort between Ethan Allen and Benedict Arnold about who should be credited for leading the capture. Dozens of cannons and other heavy weapons were hauled back to Boston 300 miles the following winter by oxen and ice sledges. The guns were set up on Dorchester Hill. The British withdrew. The capture of Fort Ticonderoga was thus not only America's first victory in the Revolutionary War, it gave patriots hope and inspiration.